Today I'm going to try to draw this gigantic monastery near the town of Signahi in the Kakheti region of Georgia, both places I'm no doubt mispronouncing. If so, I'm so sorry. This is called Bodby Monastery, as the title card suggested, and this has been here since the 9th century. Unreal. The monastery and the grounds are absolutely gorgeous, as you can see, and I'm just so glad I had the time to sit here and draw it. If you're new here, I'm traveling around the world to places like this one, and along the way, I'm learning how to draw. Scenes like this have been common during my time in Georgia, but before you know it, I'll be moving on to the next destination, where the scenery will change, and with it, the references I choose to draw. If any of that sounds interesting to you, consider subscribing to the channel. I'd love for you to stick around. So, once again, I've left Tbilisi, and this time, as mentioned, I'm in the Kakheti region, which is Georgia's primary wine-producing region. We'll be staying in the town of Signahi, as I said, and it actually won't be our first time. Last year, we had 2 nights planned, but ultimately only stayed for 1 after tasting a lot of wine. And tasting is a bit of a misnomer, if you know what I mean. However, this time, we're sticking to our 2-night plan, skipping a formal tasting, and just giving ourselves the freedom to wander around and relax. Maybe have a glass or 2, try some food, and explore the town. Also, of course, I'll do a drawing or 2, so look out for that. Anyway, reference-wise, I don't think it gets much better than this. Sure, I've drawn plenty of similar structures during my time in Georgia, but none as imposing and impressive as this. While I have been to the region before, this is my first time at this monastery, and it's massive. It took me a few minutes to figure out exactly where I'd like to set up, which perspective I thought would be the most interesting, and I landed on this one, mostly because it gave me the most space to just back up and include as much of the building as possible. You'll notice that it's still not fully in frame, which speaks to how huge it really is. Also, I wanted to make sure I didn't frame it straight on, because for a subject like this one, the most interesting parts are the angles. Speaking of angles, I think that's the key here. The perspective was challenging, keeping all the lines pointing in the correct directions, and I was completely aware of that upon starting. I didn't practice much before sitting down and going for it, and that's just because I was largely unconcerned with a lot of the details here and practically unaware of any contextual elements. My prime motive was to draw the shape of the monastery with all of its angles and planes, focusing intently on size and proportion. And I think I succeeded in that. Many of those smaller details do fall by the wayside, but even so, I think the essence of those details sticks around. None of that is perfect though, but I really don't care. As long as I can make this feel large and structurally solid, I'd be happy. As mentioned, this type of architecture is not uncommon to the region, and I think I've proven that through these videos. A lot of these structures, whether church or monastery, share incredibly similar architectural cues, and that has helped me build this picture in my head of what goes where and maybe how certain pieces converge and whatnot. And I think I have that to thank for this one turning out so well. For example, yesterday's drawing from up above Tbilisi included the top of a church that shared a nearly identical structure. While that one was from a downward angle, it still helps me a lot with regard to envisioning the form of these buildings. That means that I don't necessarily have to observe these wholly individually, like I'm starting from scratch every single time, but instead I get to kind of confirm how close or far apart this one is from that one. It helps me a lot when it comes to things that aren't shared between them, and for this one, that might just come down to the perspective. If the first church that I drew in Georgia shares everything with the last, I can apply what I learned from the former and allocate more of my time and attention to the lighting or perspective specificities of the latter. Contrast that to a place like Estonia, where every tower had its own unique everything. In that situation, I had to reevaluate not just the lighting or perspective or proportions for each tower, but every last minute detail that ultimately came together to create them. Obviously, too much sameness could stunt my broader growth, but I think for a handful of drawings, having something of a blueprint to follow has been largely positive and has encouraged me to not exactly look beyond the macro stuff, but more seamlessly understand it, if that makes sense. One last note before we go. I have a cat in my lap. Did it make the drawing more difficult? Sure it did. Were there a bunch of people stopping and taking pictures of it? Of course there were. Was it worth it? Yes. I love cats, especially when they're this friendly and playful. So when this one decided to join me in my artistic endeavor, I welcomed it with open arms, or I guess legs in this case. I thought it was adorable. I'm glad it made it into the video, and I hope you find it as silly and as cute as I do. Okay, there we go. I love it. I love it so much. I think everything came together surprisingly well, but like I said, I've had a decent amount of practice over the past few drawings, so it really shouldn't be all that surprising. My lines here feel really strong and purposeful, and the whole thing just came out pretty solid. I'm really happy with it. One thing that stands out to me now is the peaked roof up front. You can't see it in the reference, and neither can you in the drawing, but the angle that I drew it would suggest that you should be able to see some of its roof. In the reference, the front and the side, from my perspective, create pretty much this perfectly straight line, whereas in my drawing, I've made the front a steeper angle than the side. Hopefully you see what I mean with that. It's not a huge deal, but it's noticeable, to me at least, and I'll try to fix that in future drawings. Sometimes these angles feel wrong while I'm drawing them, but I just need to learn to trust my eye that little bit more. Anyway, let me know what you think. Also, maybe you noticed I'm now posting these 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, rather than 7. Less demanding for me, more accommodating, hopefully, for you. Besides, we should all be out enjoying our weekends, not sitting and watching me draw. At least that's how I'm selling it. Anyway, I appreciate you, as always, for taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.